Joining me today is Winfried Feneberg, who is the superintendent of the Kearsarge Regional School District. I want to keep talking about the budget.
Sure.
I guess I want to ask, we talked about the retirement, perhaps at great length, but it's a subtlety that interests me because it's something we don't ever really talk about and how complex it is.
Sure.
But let's get at sort of the other things that are in there that affect students' lives, and I want to get at sort of I'll use the business metaphor of investment. Tell me why it's a good investment, or not.
Well,
I'm assuming you're going to say it is. But
yeah, I would definitely say it is, yes. Thanks for opening that door. Our biggest investment, obviously, is our teachers and our students. This is a very personnel-intensive business. About 75% of our costs annually have to do with wages and person costs.
So if I were a taxpayer, how would I say it's good?
Yeah. Public education is expensive, there's no doubt about it. I think we need to look at what do we get in return. And I would contend that in the Kearsarge district, we have strived to bring a quality product to our students, to train our students well and educate them well over the 12 years they spend or 13 years they spend with us. So we try to give a good return on the investment to the towns by having students who meet the standards and are ready and prepared for the future. So yes, it is expensive. We are very aware of that. Our costs, we try to control them as best as possible, also invest in the future. For example, one of the components of this year's budget, as it stands, is the wastewater treatment plant. We have an original wastewater treatment plant for this building.
For the high school?
That's over 40 years old, when it was built.
You got a good useful life out of it then.
Good useful life. We are about 12 years to 15 years beyond reasonable life expectancy. The board and the budget committee, I have to give them credit, they realize this is something we can't wait much longer. So $350,000 from the budget is dedicated to replace that wastewater treatment plant.
And that's not a really, pardon the word, sexy sort of activity. I mean,
no, it's
got to be done.
Yes, it's a facilities, it's a capital improvement. What we have, though, discussed, and we were successful with that, is after the budgets were agreed on with the budget committee and the board, we investigated whether we could tap into our reserve fund, the 2.5% that the board sets aside annually. And our inquiries to the Department of Education were successful. So we were allowed to use $350,000 of this year's contingency fund to get that process paid for, which is really going to provide a relief from the budget, because at the January deliberative session, we will most likely be able to reduce the budget proposals
based on
if there's a majority at the deliberative session to go for that proposal, to reduce it by $350,000, which will have an immediate impact on next year's budget.
Is New Hampshire a good state to work with?
New Hampshire is an excellent state to work with. I think we are blessed with having that local control. We have also a very active Department of Education that supports superintendents and districts in what they need to do.
And we're at a class break too, I take it by that bell.
Yeah, well, you can see school in action. Yeah. So it is a fine state to work in, and I've always appreciated being associated with education in my whole career, really, in education.
Okay, we got about 30 seconds left, and one quick question. If you could get the state to do one thing, what would that thing be?
I think pay for what is an adequate education.
Okay, so we're going to need like more than 30 seconds to answer that question. What is an adequate education?
Well, an adequate education is defined in state law right now and through the court rulings with Claremont 1 and Claremont 2. Basically, it's defined right now as costing about $3,800 plus or minus per child.
Does that even get close? And we're
No.
out of time. Doesn't even get close. We're going to have you back and we'll talk about that. Thanks. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Capital Connections, your weekly access to politics and policy along the I-89 and I-91 corridors and how it impacts your life in our region. Please join us again at this same time next week for another edition of Capital Connections. And for those people who are in the Kearsarge Regional District, we'd like to remind you that the deliberative session is going to be held on January 7th in the morning. So please come down and participate in your democracy.